Every time I encountered a Wronskian in differential equations classes, I thought it was the grossest thing ever. Wronskian, capital W-R-O-N-S-K-I-A-N, Wronskian. The word of the day is Wronskian, something related to differential equations and matrices and math, and a lot of engineers today, they have encountered it if they took a Diff-EQ class or differential equations class. So I'll say right off the bat that in terms of pronunciation, I am sure that I'm pronouncing it with my huge Chicago accent, Wronskian. And the real pronunciation, who knows what it is, because it's named after this Polish mathematician, Wronski, I don't know. And the guy who actually named it was a Scottish mathematician, so who knows how he pronounced it. Wronski. I'll stop offending people now. And so I'm just going to say Wronskian. And doesn't that word just sound gross? It sounds like wrinkly skin or something. And so I first encountered this word, Wronskian, in high school. Senior year, I happened to take a differential equations class, an intro to differential equations class, because I was lucky. And my high school just happened to have it. And I remember learning about it. And you use Wronskians. It's a determinant. It's this calculation you do. And you can perform this calculation and produce the Wronskian to find out if two different functions in math are maybe linearly independent. And I say maybe because it turns out there's some rules where it doesn't always work. But in any case, generally speaking, you can calculate a Wronskian of two functions to see if they're linearly independent. And if the Wronskian goes to zero, maybe those two functions are actually dependent. Maybe they're multiples of another, some kind of combination of each other. But in any case, I encountered it in high school, and that's where I first learned that I didn't like differential equations that much. In any case, the Wronskian was gross, and then I had to take differential equations again when I was an undergrad. And again, the Wronskian was gross sounding, but I calculated it was fine. And in grad school, I had to teach differential equations. And the Wronskian was still gross, even though I actually really enjoyed differential equations, almost 10 years later from when I first encountered it. The Wronskian remained kind of disgusting. And I would argue that it's a calculation that was so useless because it doesn't even work all the time. And it's just something that you have to learn how to do if you take that class. But you know what? Differential equations is a lot like, to me, it's a lot like running a 10K every other month if you're training for a marathon. It's just one of those things you got to do if you're going to go for the higher stakes of running that big race. In this case, the higher stakes are becoming an engineer and getting that degree. You got to calculate the Wronskian if you're going to pass differential equations and eventually become an ABET accredited engineer. And so ABET is going to be a word of the day for a future episode sometime. That is the word of the day, Wronskian. I'm Pius Wong. I'm an engineer who has a consulting education company called Pios Labs, and it's also a studio that produces this podcast and the K-12 Engineering Education Podcast. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to support Pios Labs and myself, please do at www.patreon.com/Pios Labs, Pioslabs.